Hi, and welcome to Relationship Talk with Laura, where we're changing the world by improving one relationship at a time. Last week we talked about the love languages. Oops, I made a mistake last week. When you took the test, I had the answers in the wrong order. Not to worry, go to my website and look at my blog, and I have posted the complete questionnaire and the correct answers. Have fun taking it with your loved ones and your friends. Remember, our quote last week was, "Do unto others as they would have you do unto them." That is the platinum rule of relationships. Today we are going to talk about sacrifice in marriage, in relationships, with each other, versus selfishness. Our quote for this week will be, "When you lose yourself in the service of others, you will find your true self." All right, so let's talk about sacrifice. A lot of you, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, help, sacrifice is a dirty word. You go to any cocktail party or talk about it at a bridge club, and assuredly people will say, "We don't sacrifice anymore. That was women in the old days. Since women's lib, we can be doctors, lawyers, we can do whatever we want, and we don't sacrifice anymore." But really, is that true when we really love someone else? What about sacrifice in general? It takes sacrifice to become a concert pianist, or a professional ballet dancer, or any kind of sports, going to medical school. Anything that we do that is worthwhile requires sacrifice. When our son was in high school, he wanted to get a scholarship to college in swimming. So he practiced 3 hours a day swimming 6 days a week. That was a sacrifice. He couldn't go to all of the parties and out with the guys and doing all the fun things other people were doing. But he made his goal. The sacrifice turned into gold, and the gold was a full scholarship to college. So on one hand, sacrifice is a good thing, and on the other, a negative, and we're going to examine that today. So for our first story, I call it the gecko story. Years ago, my husband and I went to the island of Molokai in Hawaii. It had just opened up to tourists. It had only been a leper colony for many, many years. We were very excited about going and hiking all over the island. When we arrived, lo and behold, our little bungalow was pretty near the beach. And when I walked into the bedroom, I screeched. And my husband ran in to see what was this blood-curdling sound coming from his wife. And I pointed sheepishly to a gecko that was crawling on the wall. I'm very afraid of anything slithery, snakes and geckos. But my husband just smiled, and he spent the next hour with a glass trying to track down that gecko. He finally caught it in the glass, and he took it outside. Now that was a sacrifice for him to do, but I sure felt loved because he did that for me. If he hadn't sacrificed and said, "Oh, get over it, big deal," I think I would have been very unhappy, felt unloved, and like he didn't care about what mattered to me. So sometimes sacrifices are worth their weight in gold because we are giving somebody else love. Now, how about a negative form of sacrifice? I call this story the odious woman. When I was a little girl, we lived in a middle-class neighborhood, and we pretty much dressed in homemade clothes. My mother either sewed our clothes for us, or she had someone else make them for us because that was the way to save money. Very few people that I knew were able to afford to buy clothes at Nordstrom's and high-end stores. But down the block from us lived a woman who dressed like a Parisian model. She always looked like she belonged on the cover of Vogue magazine. And I used to hear my parents say that she was spending their family into oblivion. Well, such was the case. They were on the verge of bankruptcy, and despite her husband's best efforts to ask her to please conserve, she would not. She did not care about anything or anyone but herself. True selfishness. And in an act of absolute desperation, the poor husband took a gun to his head and shot himself. That left a great impression on me as a little girl. And I realized how dreadful selfishness can be in a relationship. So let's take some of your questions right now. Question number 1 comes from Emma from Washington. My husband insists that I wash his shirts at home and iron and starch them. It takes me hours to do, and I resent doing them. We could easily afford to have his shirts professionally laundered. We both work and have no children, so it's not like we need the money for another expense. Should I sacrifice and keep doing them myself even though I'm tired when I come home from work and have to do the cooking too? I don't mind doing the cooking, it's just the shirts. What should I do? That sounds like there's something more to this than we know. If he's insisting on having his shirts laundered by you and ironed by you, for some reason he needs some kind of love from you. I suggest that you talk to him, have a dialogue, ask him why does this mean so much to him. Tell him that you feel resentful that you have to do them when you could easily afford to have them laundered by someone else. And see if, first of all, he will be reasonable about it, because this surely is one of those sacrifices that doesn't matter. Find out if you can give him love in another way. Maybe his love language is acts of service, to which you could do some other kind of service for him, one that you would like to do rather than the laundered shirts. Good luck on that one. Let's look at question number 2. Larry from Idaho. I have 3 little children ages 2, 4, and 6. When I come home from work, I'm exhausted and don't want to do anything except relax, read, and sometimes watch TV. But my wife, who is a stay-at-home mom, insists that I give the kids baths, get them ready for bed, then we eat dinner together, and together we put the children to bed. I don't think this is fair. After all, I'm the one working all day. What do you think?
Shh! It's very simple. Your ego is in the way of the resolution.
All right. You see what's happening here is that you are thinking, me, 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 me. Selfish, selfish, selfish. Sorry about that. You think you're the only one who works? Your wife is working very hard at home. She may not be bringing in money for what she's doing, but if you had to replace her, you would be spending money for a housekeeper, you would be spending money for a nanny, and possibly a chauffeur, a cook, etc. So do you see she is earning money at home too and working all day? And didn't you have those children together? So don't you care about them just as much as your wife? I think so. And part of having children is sacrifice, but it's a good sacrifice. And so take your ego out of it. And remember that when you are in the service of your children, you are truly finding out who you really are. All right, let's take a look at Caroline from Montana. I'm a single mom raising 1 daughter, age 12. I want to go out on dates on weekends. My daughter wants me to spend 1 night on the weekends with her. I think she's being selfish in wanting to spend one night on the weekends with her. I work full-time, and weekends are my time to have fun. What should I tell my daughter?
You can do it. You can do it. Yay! You can do it!
Okay, basically this is the cheerleader side saying to you, you can do this. You can be a single mom. You can go out on weekends and you can have fun, but you can do it. You can do it. You can take care of your daughter. One night a weekend isn't much for your daughter to ask for your attention. You can do it. Be your own cheerleader. A cheerleader that says you can be a great mom spending time with your daughter, and a great mom also going out and having one night a week fun for yourself. Let me tell you another story right now as we break for a minute. I think about my ancestor. Her name was Elizabeth Dorsey. She immigrated with her husband and her 2 children from Ireland. Now they were very excited to come to America, and like many of them, they were on a ship coming across the ocean. Well, Elizabeth Dorsey happened to be a doctor as well, and unfortunately typhoid fever broke out on the ship, and she spent many, many hours caring for the sick. Unfortunately, right before they were ready to land, she herself had contracted typhoid fever and died, never realizing her great dream with her children and her husband in America. Well, she's indisputably an angelic person. That was a good sacrifice, but it was a sacrifice that cost the family greatly. Let's take another question from Abby from Los Angeles. For the past 5 years, I have been working as a paralegal while my husband has been trying to become an actor. We came here right after we married so that he could pursue his dream. He doesn't work because he has to be available at a moment's notice for auditions. So far, he hasn't booked one commercial, one movie role, or TV show. When is enough enough? On top of that, I came home from work early one day with a headache and found him in bed with another woman. What should I do?
I don't know about you, honey, but I'd head for the hills. Head for the hills.
That's right, you should head for the hills. You should not be sacrificing any more. Your sacrifices started out nobly, but unfortunately, your husband began to abuse you through your sacrifices. Tragic. I'm so sorry that you're going through this trauma, but it is time for you to get out. Absolutely, get out of that relationship and move on. Let's talk about Princess Diana and Prince Charles. Do you remember them getting married? The fairy tale it was. Oh, I remember watching the entire wedding on TV. I believe it was the end of July. We were all so excited about this marriage. However, it tragically ended up in divorce. So sad. And I've often wondered, would that have had to be the case? Could it have been that, what if Prince Charles didn't go on his hunting and fishing trips by himself? Of course, we all know later on he had a friend that he's now married to. But in the beginning, what if Princess Diana had gone on those trips with him? Could it have made a difference? They had different interests. She, of course, she loved disco dancing and going out with her friends and so on. What would have happened if Prince Charles had made a sacrifice and gone with her? Would it have been a different story? Could they have learned to truly share in each other's activities? Would that sacrifice have paid off? I don't know. We'll never know, of course. It's mere speculation. But something to think about in our lives. that sacrifice for another person that we love, a good one, can show great, great love for them. Let's take another question. Tessa from San Francisco. My husband and I have 2 children. They are 8 and 6. Overall, we have a great marriage. We have never been to Disneyland, and I would like to take them there. I'm originally from Orange County and used to go to Disneyland once a year with my family. My husband doesn't like Disneyland and wants instead to take the kids on a camping trip to Yellowstone National Park. He feels that getting out in nature and hiking as a family is more important. If I give in and say, okay, am I being weak? This is a good question. We're talking about compromise here. Why can't you go to your husband and say, honey, it's a great idea that we both do both things for our children. Let's take turns. Good luck. Anna from Oklahoma is on the line. Hello. I'll try again. Hello?
Hi, Laura.
Hi, Anna. Thank you for calling in. What can I help you with today?
Well, I'm struggling with an issue I have with my husband and his mom. Okay, we got married 6 months ago, and we knew each other for years before then, so we're great. Our relationship, just he and I, is great. He is an only child, and his daddy passed away 8 years ago, and he was kind of a miracle baby as it was for them. They tried for 12 years, and then he finally came, and so he's always kind of been a mama's boy that way, and, you know, we spent a lot of time with her, but nothing, you know, I mean, everything was fine until after we got married. And, you know, he had already been living on his own. It's not like he just moved out of our house. But ever since we got married, she's been different, and it really bothers me.
How has she been different? Can you explain that to me?
Sure. She's needy. It's like all of a sudden she can't do anything for herself, and it's almost like she's competing with me to see who can get more of his time.
So would you say that her language of love is time spent with her or acts of service? Does she want your husband to do things for her or just be with her, spending time with her?
Well, when she calls, which she calls at least once a day, there are things that she's asking him questions. You know, sometimes it's legitimate, like he went over on Sunday and she had a toilet, you know, that the water kept pouring out, like it, you know, it wasn't on the floor or anything, but it wouldn't stop running, and he fixed that, and that's fine. But then she called him over, like last week, to ask him to help move a couch that she has moved by herself before. And it was right at dinner time, and then she, you know, oh, thanks for helping me, and now, oh, I have dinner, let me, you know, thank you for eat dinner with me, and she wouldn't invite me. He was like, well, let me go get Anna, and she was like, oh, it'll be cold by then, just never mind, and she started pouting, and, you know, so I didn't get to have dinner with my husband, and he works late, so it doesn't happen very often, and
So I can tell that this is a problem. You have on one hand, you have a wonderful husband. He loves his mom, which always is a good sign that he'll always love you. But now that you're married, it's time to set some kind of a boundary. And you sound like you're very supportive that, of course, she had a toilet with a problem, and you were glad that your husband went over and helped her. Great, great. Your objection is when she calls him to do something that she can do herself, and furthermore, it interrupts your dinner time and you're not invited. Is that right?
yeah, I mean, I'm fine for us all to be a family, but I don't want to feel like I come after his mama, and especially like when we have kids and our time's even more shut, smaller together, I don't want us to feel like we all come after Nana.
Very good, and you're smart to only be married 6 months and want to solve this problem now rather than stew about it and get angrier as the years go by. That's phenomenal that you want to solve it. So,
thank you.
So what we're talking about today has been about sacrifice. And it's one thing for you to sacrifice your husband on Sunday to fix her toilet, and another thing to sacrifice his time with you, dinner time and so on. So, would you be comfortable talking to your husband about how you could set a boundary? Still give the mother love, but set a boundary with her.
Well, I've tried, and maybe I just don't know how, but...
What have you done so far?
Well, the whole dinner thing I didn't do so well. I was pretty upset about that. We kind of had a fight about it, and he feels guilty because, he feels like he's the only one who can take care of his mom, so he is a good son, has to go over there whenever she calls, and he says, well, what am I supposed to say? If she calls me, what am I supposed to say? And, I said, well, tell her, you'll come on Saturday when you have time. Or, if it's the couch, say, oh, Mom, I thought you could move that on your own. Or, we haven't really come up with anything, I guess.
Well, I like your thinking because you're having a dialogue with your husband and talking to him about if she calls and says, can you move my couch now? I like your idea of setting the boundary that, so you really can't move it by yourself, Mom. Okay, well, it's not an emergency and I have dinner planned with my wife, so I can't come over now, but let me check with my wife and we could come over together and help you. What would you think of something like that?
Well, I hadn't thought about me going over with him, because that's one of the bigger problems is when he's over there, she wants him to stay, and then I'm not there, so then we're not together. I like that.
So maybe what you can do is make sure that your husband has his allegiance #1 to you, unless it's an emergency, of course. Emergencies, right. You're going to be there. But secondly, being able for him to consult with you. That should be your #1 rule, that he always consults with you. He should always say to his mother, let me talk to my wife. So pretty soon the mom is going to get the clue.
Yeah.
That
and
you are
like
#1.
It's between me and her. It's like we both decided it was okay. Yeah.
Right. And then together too. I think it would be a good thing that you show up with your husband to show your unity. It's a visual aid to her. Oh, they're a unit now. He's not alone.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because this is new for her. She's had her son all to herself all these years. And that would show a united front. Would you be comfortable talking to your husband about that?
Yeah, I think that sounds good. Because I don't like being the enemy. I mean, I've been around for years. It's just this past little bit that I've been the other woman, But yeah, that sounds happy for everyone. I like that because I love her too. I want us all to be happy again.
I think that's really great. Furthermore, it might be that you want to develop a relationship with her yourself one-on-one. Have you tried that yet?
Well, I haven't not tried. It's true, we haven't. We don't do a lot, just the two of us. We never really have.
I assume that she's home alone. Does she work outside the home?
No, she doesn't. Her husband left her with a lot of life insurance, and she was smart about it, so she doesn't have to.
Good.
Yeah.
So maybe
no, she doesn't.
So maybe you could try to do something once a month with her yourself. to develop some kind of a relationship so that you can truly become a daughter to her. You know, the old saying is, I haven't lost a son, I've gained a daughter. Wouldn't it be great if she could look at you as her very own daughter? And that will wipe away resentments also. It's just another way of developing that unity as an entire family. What are her interests? Do you know what her interests are?
Well, yeah, she does a lot of crocheting.
All right.
She collects little ceramic dolls, like the really antique pretty ones, and she makes clothes for them. I'm not really into making doll clothes, but I wouldn't mind learning how to sew.
Oh, that's a great idea to have her teach you how to sew. That would be an investment for her in you, and that would make her feel like she's important in your life and worthwhile. That's a brilliant idea if you could do that. I think that would make her truly love you all the more because you would be sharing her interest. And who knows, maybe you could sew some doll clothes for her dolls, and she would she would be thrilled, wouldn't she?
Well, as long as I made him good enough, probably.
But you get the idea, and
Yeah.
you can vary what you do with her. So sounds like, does this help? Does it sound like you got the answer to what you wanted?
Yeah, I was feeling really trapped, and I mean, these seem like such simple ideas, but thank you. I did not think of these on my own.
Well,
Slow them down.
Great. I'm so glad that you called in. I'm thrilled to have you in our audience, and good luck on doing those things. I think it will bring you joy with your mother-in-law and with your husband, and you will not feel that you are sacrificing negatively.
Yes, well, I thank you so much. This is amazing. I'm so excited to try these. I can't wait till Steve gets home tonight. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks for calling. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So today, as we wrap up talking about selfishness in relationships, as we talk about sacrifice, the good, the bad, I challenge you to have a conversation with your loved ones. Take an inventory of your life and list any sacrifices which you feel are negative, and get rid of those, like starching and ironing shirts that you don't need to do when you have enough money. Don't let yourself be filled with resentment. Solve it. And then remember, the good service is our quote for the week, which is, when you lose yourself in the service of your loved ones, you find your true self. I hope that all of us will practice good sacrifice in our relationships, that will get rid of selfishness, and that will improve the relationships in our lives. See you next time on Relationship Talk with Laura, 2 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, every Thursday.